Welcome to the Do Zone, where real entrepreneurs share real strategies about getting things done. I'm your host, Josh Thomas. Tag me at JT Literally and show me what you do in the Do Zone. Every week, I'll pick the best post to feature across all my social networks. This podcast is brought to you by Factor One. If you are a six-figure entrepreneur who's looking to hit 7 this year, there are 3 key shifts you need to make right now in order for it to be possible. Go to IamFactor1.com now, and I'll show you exactly what those 3 key shifts are and how you can get them set up for your business in less than 6 minutes. Once again, that's IamFactor1.com. Today's guest is Chuck Nabush. After serving 9 years with the U.S. Army and 28 years in corporate America with a multinational, multi-billion-dollar manufacturing company, Chuck Nabush founded 1310 Business Solutions, LLC, and wrote the book, Hope is Not a Business Strategy, How to Take Control of Your Business so it won't take control of you. He now works to support and assist business leaders and organizations improve their operations, resulting in bottom line improvements and giving them back more time. Chuck, welcome to the Do Zone. Tell us something you believe is the key to getting stuff done that most people wouldn't think of.
Josh, I think ultimately it all comes down to integrity. Dwight Eisenhower said that the supreme quality for leadership is unquestionably integrity. Without it, no real success is possible. And I believe that because, I mean, if I would tell you I'm going to get something done and I don't do it, do we have success later on? I mean, and I think a lot of people really want to go ahead and honor their word. So I think integrity really becomes a foundational aspect of getting anything done.
You know, I was recently having a conversation about this word. And so you just lobbed it right up for me, man. I love that. I love it. And so here's what's interesting about the word integrity. A lot of times we take it kind of beyond its original meaning, but the original definition of integrity is to be complete, to be whole. It actually comes from the Latin word integer. And if you know anything about math, which I don't, but I do have access to a dictionary, integer is a whole number that's not a fraction, it's not a decimal, it's a whole number. And so integer is whole. And if you have integrity, it means you are complete. A bridge has structural integrity, which means it is complete, it can self-contain. And when you realize that was the original definition of it, it kind of changes how you think about integrity. And so since you brought it up, I'm curious kind of what is your take on what does integrity even mean? Because we could probably go on for hours about that.
I mean, I think, the definition or the origins are correct. I mean, you have to be whole. And, when you're not going ahead and using integrity, when you're telling somebody you're going to do something and you're not going to do it, are you really whole? Because you have a piece of you that's incomplete, a piece of your word that you have offered to somebody else that isn't complete. It's still outstanding. Whether you want to call it, credits and debits or however you want to approach it, you have something out there in the ledger that does not get checked off. And so I really do believe that original definition fits with what we're talking about, even right here in getting stuff done. You have to go ahead and live up to your word. And it's not just your word. I mean, you take a position in a corporation, let's say. I mean, it has a set of job descriptions. It has a set of things that you need to do. If you're not doing all of them, are you really whole? Are you really whole in the perspective of that corporation? If you're an entrepreneur and you go ahead and say, hey, I've got these 12 things to go ahead and get done, and you only get 3 of them done. Now, some of that may be because you don't have time, and you will become whole after a period of time. But I think that also starts to go ahead and then lead into prioritization. What is it that really absolutely needs to get done today? What's not just important, but urgent and important? And if it's not urgent and important, should you be doing it, or can you delegate it?
Eisenhower talks about they call it the Eisenhower matrix sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly right. So you mentioned that quote about him earlier. And I have 2 kinds of problems. I have important problems and I have urgent problems. And the idea is to focus on the important problems, not necessarily the urgent problems, because something can be urgent. I need to do this right now, but it's not necessarily important to your goals. And so we're always trying to balance between those two.
Well,
And I'm
Josh, even better, you want to focus on both the important and urgent, because some will go ahead and fall across both categories. And that's what you need to get done right now. That it has to urgently be done and it's important, not one or the other. It's only when you get into one or the other that starts to take the second or the third priority. And if it's neither, yeah, you need to go ahead and take it off your list, period.
and the way that we can relate that to entrepreneurs is a lot of times we literally say the phrase, I'm running around putting out fires.
Absolutely.
Fires are urgent always, but are they important?
Right.
And that's the question that we really have to answer. Are we solving problems, or are we enjoying the heroism of being firefighters, which turns us into arsonists?
No, absolutely. I mean, I love the whole firefighter analogy, because I say, the best leaders, the best entrepreneurs are fire marshals. They prevent the fire through planning, they may have had a fire in their past, and that goes ahead and gives them the urgency to go ahead and prevent it in the future. But it's the fire marshal, and they're not the hero in our society, but they're the ones trying to prevent the fire so that firefighter doesn't have to run out, and we don't have to expend those resources, as you said, urgently.
Yeah, well said. And about that fire marshal, it kind of leads into leadership, which is something that you like to talk a lot about. And I know that I 100% agree with this when you say there are 3 requirements of leadership. The first is integrity, which we've already discussed, communication, and then finally a love for people. Because if you are a leader, you are in charge of other people. And if you hate people, you're going to be a crappy leader. And so talk to us a little bit about, we know integrity is important. Talk to us about why communication and a love for people, and give us some examples of how you've applied that in your businesses.
I mean, communication, how do you get somebody else to do something? How do you get them to live up to their potential if you haven't communicated that to them? If they don't know what their job is about, if they don't know what their performance metrics are, and yet you're measuring them, is that really fair? Are you using good integrity, number one? But is that really fair to them? No. So what you need to do is set expectations. And the only way you can do that is through communication. And then you manage expectations. Okay, we've got a gap here. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe the process is wrong. Maybe the tools aren't right. But for some reason, I expected this and you delivered this. How do we go ahead and close that gap, either on this instance or the next instance? And you can only do that through communication. And ultimately, it comes down to people. As you said, if you don't love the people, and I understand there's always a bad apple. There's always somebody who that chafes us a little bit, and we have to go ahead and work with them a little bit harder. But that doesn't mean we can't go ahead and love them, because they're there just trying to go ahead and make ends meet, trying to go ahead and provide for their family. And they're trying to do the best, because nobody comes to work saying, man, I want to be mediocre today, or man, I want to go ahead and do a crappy job. Nobody comes to work like that. But have we set them up for success? Because remember, their success ultimately becomes our success as an entrepreneur. So we need to make sure that we've given them the right expectations. We've set them. We know how to go ahead and measure them, and we communicate with them and make adjustments, because again, they're going to be trying their best, right, wrong, and different. And there are cases where you have the wrong person in the wrong seat in the bus, but we can change seats. That's relatively easy.
That's right. And so tell me a little bit about how you've developed a lot of these kind of frameworks for businesses. Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you serve, and how we can connect with you.
Love working with any organization that has an operation, which really is all of them. Whether you're an accounting firm or an architectural firm, or I come from a manufacturing floor, so certainly love manufacturing, but really you can cross industries by just looking at operations, what's repeatable, what should be repeatable, and looking at those processes and how do we go ahead and improve them. Do we have those processes documented? Are we aligned across the various functional areas? I mean, because even, small entrepreneurial companies, they've got one person doing marketing and sales and another one, either providing the service or the product. And sometimes there's a disconnect between those two functional areas, and we need to just go ahead and align that. Well, the service group says, hey, I need the customer's address in order to go ahead and deliver the product. The sales marketing people, oh man, I forgot to go ahead and get it. Well, then how can one do their part without the other one doing their part? So again, communication comes into play. And what we try and do is we look at, is the business aligned? And if so, what's their biggest issue, their biggest obstacle they need to overcome, their biggest opportunity that they committed to this year? And then we focus on how do we go ahead and get that done if they're underperforming already. If they're already performing on that, then we look at the next opportunity. And can we go ahead and take that on with the resources they have? Because sometimes you can only work on one thing at a time because your resources are limited. Other times you can work on 2 or 3. We don't want 12, we don't want 50, but you can work on 2 or 3. What's that next one that we can go ahead and add in and fit it in, to an improvement plan, and then follow it up. And again, it's all about the planning, the expectations, the people.
Well said. And so where can we go to learn a little bit more about that?
Go out to my website, 1310.com. You can go out to Amazon, get my book. Hope is Not a Business Strategy. Either one will go ahead and give you plenty of insights. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn, either at 1310 Business Solutions on LinkedIn or at Charles T. Knabush Jr. on LinkedIn.
Okay. Knabush. I totally butchered that at the beginning. Sorry about that.
Everybody I meet has that's so low on my issues list.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting because I almost always I'll catch an interesting last name and I'll ask for clarification on how to pronounce it before I just butcher it. But this time, I just went with the crowd, I guess. Sorry about that, Chuck.
No worries. No worries.
You got it. So, hey, we're going to wrap up from here. Thanks again to Chuck Knabush for sharing a little bit of wisdom about how he gets things done. He's got a book on Amazon that you can go and pick up called Hope is Not a Business Strategy. And for those of you who want to connect with him directly and potentially work with him, you can go to 13ten.com. That's 13ten.com. For those of you who are listening to this podcast while you're at work, during your workout, or somewhere out on the field on your morning commute, be sure to snap a selfie and tag me at JT Literally. Tell me what you do in the do zone. Also, if you're ready to break the 7-figure barrier with your business, but you know what got you here ain't going to get you there, we can help. Go to IamFactor1.com now, and let's see how much impact we can make in the next 6 minutes. Know this, you are Factor 1 for your own success. Now let's get to work.